the BAFTAs last night, or on the way into the BAFTAs last night, the Prince of Wales was walking through, and another question about it all was thrown at him. He didn't answer it, but it was thrown at him. And in a conversation about whether he'd seen the film Hamnet or not, he revealed that he wasn't feeling calm enough at the moment to watch it. I kind of know what he means, but he wouldn't feel calm at the moment, would he? John Sopel is here has joined me to talk more about this, co-host of Global's podcast, The News Agents. I mean, that was an interesting revelation, really, from William, wasn't it, yesterday?
Well, insofar as it's a revelation, and we've discussed this. We've discussed this on your show before, Sheila. What's remarkable is how, there have been occasions where Prince William has been out and about. He's been in radio studios and the like, and no one has said, we do need an answer to this question. Yeah. And what we know from the Prince and Princess of Wales is that they support the statement issued by the King, that icy cold statement saying, kind of putting maximum distance between himself and his brother. And William wants to put as much distance as he can between himself and his uncle. Because, of course, it is doing absolute untold damage to the monarchy.
At least William can claim some generational distance, can't he?
Yes, he can. And I suppose that what Charles would say is that he wanted to do things about this earlier on, but all the time that his mother was alive, it was impossible to do that. And following the death of her, the late Queen, I think he has made these moves. Now, whether it's too little, too late, whether it was adroit enough or fast enough is a debatable question. But I think it's the actions of the late Queen herself that demand scrutiny. And, shouldn't we be told how much was paid to settle the case in New York brought by Virginia Giuffre against Prince Andrew? Because the figures banded around £12 million or whatever it is. I mean, was that our money? Was that taxpayers' money? Or was it the Queen's private money? And does the Queen have private money? Because don't we support the monarchy?
Because there are now investigations as well into exactly what amount of taxpayers' money might have been used when then Prince Andrew was a trade envoy. There's all kinds of questions around that spending and who paid for what when. Just before we get on to my theory that there could be tougher decisions for King Charles to make down the line, depending on a couple of events. Interesting from Australia this morning, Anthony Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister, saying that he supports and the Australian government supports Andrew being removed from the line of succession. So we're getting more of this sort of individual sort of chunks being taken out of the whole thing, aren't we?
Of course. And look, there's much more of a Republican tradition in Australia, and on, I think, their new $5 note, they don't have a picture of the King. They've kind of gone for something different. So, even on their coinage, they're not now automatically adopting the head of the royal family in a way that they did when the Queen was on the throne. So that's always been there. I mean, is any Commonwealth country going to say, oh, no, come on, Prince Andrew, good chap, we ought to keep him where he is? I don't think so. So I don't think it's that surprising that the Australian government have said what they've said, but it's all part of a piece and a direction of travel. And I think that kind of one of the central questions that comes out of this is, look, we just talked about the money. We talked about other taxpayers' money that Andrew might have used. And there's, people are saying there's got to be some kind of accountability on this. There's got to be some kind of transparency on all of this. You can't have this degree of opacity. Well, once you go down that route, then you're fundamentally changing the relationship between the royal family and the rest of the country, because you're saying they are accountable like everybody else. And the misbehaviour of Andrew has brought something which was in the background that people were saying, well, hang on, surely we ought to see where money is being spent and how it's being spent, has brought that to the fore. And it's a really uncomfortable question, because if we're going to hold them accountable, who? Do they go before the Public Accounts Committee in the House of Commons and justify why they took a plane on this occasion and the royal train on that occasion? I think those things, and then you start to say, well, the royal family are just like anyone else.
Well, in the law, they ought to be just like everybody else, oughtn't they? I mean, if you go to the King's statement of last Thursday, and apply it to what you and I are discussing today, he said, and I know he was talking very specifically, but he said, I'm paraphrasing now, but I will support wholeheartedly, fully and wholeheartedly, the appropriate authorities. And in a sense, that would be my answer to your question there. Well, who will do it? Well, the appropriate authorities, the same people who make sure that you and I pay our taxes and you and I aren't spending, or when we were at the BBC, weren't spending BBC money to buy ourselves a grand piano.
Sure.
The same authorities there,
But then you've lost the mystique around the royal family. And maybe it's gone anyway.
A few times, haven't we?
Yeah, but then the deference goes, and then you think, well, here's Prince William walking towards me, or here's the King walking towards me. There's no reason why I shouldn't shout out a question. And furthermore, not only shout out a question, I should expect an answer. I mean, there's something performative about us shouting a question to the King because we know he's not going to answer. But
although William once did, remember? When the family were described as racist in the Meghan and Harry interview, and he was asked on the way in or out of somewhere, is the royal family racist? And he answered, breaking the tradition not to answer, and said, we are very definitely not a racist family.
Yeah, I just think that's the direction of travel now. That all these palaces, I think it will become a slimmed down monarchy, whether they're cycling around in the way that maybe the Dutch royal family have been seen cycling in Amsterdam, I don't know. But I think that is the direction of travel now. I cannot envisage... I know you've written something about the possibility of an abdication of the king, but if there is another enthronement, can you believe it will be like the last one?
No, I don't. But I don't think it would have been anyway, even if it would have been in the normal run of things.
I just think we are in a different era now.
And for people who might not have read the piece I put on the LBC app, I couldn't shake this thought over the weekend. It just got me on Friday evening at the end of talking about it all week, and then I just suddenly thought, hang on a sec, if once the police and the appropriate authorities, to use the phrase the King did, really get stuck in, and maybe even, and again, there are some variables here that may or may not happen, but if they get their hands on 20 years of royal communications related to Andrew, related to his time as trade envoy, related maybe to the Virginia Giuffre money, if they get their hands on that, and both the police and the royals giving them the information, realise that this could really devastate the reputation of the late Queen Elizabeth and or Charles now. I think the only way to survive that would be for him, the King, to say, we did, as to use the phrase you used, we did too little too late. I'm ill. I'm older. At the time I came to the throne, and I think in order to save what we have in this country and to support the constitutional monarchy, I'll step aside. Almost like Pope Benedict did in the Vatican when he realised he was not the man, either in terms of his age, his fitness, his ability, his disposition, his capacity to really take on the change that was necessary in the Catholic Church, a massive organisation with billions of members of Catholic Church globally, and enter a completely different new broom in Pope Francis. I think we could. I'm not saying we're going to this week or next month, but I think this is such an unpredictable series of events that could flow from this that I think we should have it in the back of our mind.
So I suppose the 2 points I'd make about that, why I don't think that would be likely. The first is, we talk about apprenticeships on, apprentice plumber or apprentice electrician, and they're going to do 2 years training, 3 years training. I mean, Charles did 50 years as an apprenticeship waiting to, assume the throne. And it's something that he's very interested in. And I think that overall, Charles has been doing a really good job modernising, leaning into what needs to happen.
And he's been well liked.
And has been well liked. Yeah. And, we talk about the fraught relationship with, across the pond now with Donald Trump as president. I think Charles has navigated that magnificently. I think he stood up when you need to stand up for things. So I think that Charles has been doing a really good job insofar as anyone can do, and also doing it at a time when he's been battling cancer as well. So I think it will go against the grain and against the whole principle of constitutional monarchy, which is, you are king or queen until you take your last breath. The other reason I think is...
But that was true for 900 years of the papacy.
Yes, I know, but Benedict was very frail at the end and beset by problems and kind of and I see the analogy, but I just think that Charles has been there for what feels like 5 minutes compared to the amount of time that his mother spent on the throne.
Yeah.
The other thing that let me say quickly is that I think that he is very conscious that the last thing that William wants is to be king. This now. While his kids are young, this degree of scrutiny, they want to be at their forever house as much as possible.
And let's not forget that the Princess of Wales is recovering from cancer as well.
And Princess of Wales. Yeah. And I think that, I heard this from a very good source that William was, obviously very upset when he heard about his father having cancer, but was doubly upset by the thought of, oh my God, this is going to be visited upon me and the Princess of Wales and the children now.
Yeah, there's no doubt that will have run a coach and horses through that family, as cancer does.
Yeah. And so, but it's just, the degree of scrutiny, the degree of magnifying glass that you're under, all that sort of stuff, I think would weigh upon Charles. And I think that at this stage, the king believes he is the person to navigate this through. So I don't quite buy the abdication theory.
Should put some money on it. 50 quid to charity.
To charity. Okay. What's the charity?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
we can choose the charity. One of the royal charities. Okay. There you go. That's nice and seemly. Let's see what people think. Should the king? I'm not saying he should abdicate. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just wondering whether he would choose to, in the circumstances that some of the evidence might point to a fatally reputational problem for the crown. And I mean fatally reputational for the institution. And I think new thinking might happen at that point, but we shall see. 0345 6060 973.